Hey everyone, thanks for clicking on the video. As you already know, Myths and Monsters has officially released today on Steam and itch.io. And the full soundtrack is live on all streaming platforms with a downloadable version available on itch.io. In this video, we're answering some of the most common questions about the game's development. I talked with the team and gathered some of the things people are most likely to ask, and we'll be breaking them down one by one. If you have any additional questions about how we built the game, drop them in the comments, and we'll get back to you as soon as possible. To start things off, I'm handing the video over to Jared Laws for a few minutes. He is our sound and music director who composed about 80% of the soundtrack.
Hi, this is Jared Laws, aka Diathon, aka Centurion Dragon Studios OST creator, the producer of music and sounds. And we're getting into the first video game we ever made, Myths and Monsters, for a Centurion Dragon Studios Direct, where we answer some questions that our lead studio coder and programmer and storyboard artist Troy Schultz, aka Anti-Gamer Slayer, is asking of us. So he has a few questions, and well, what was the hardest track to make? Other than the plethora of unused music that was basically not guaranteed to make it in the game, well over 12.7 gigabytes of music just for the game alone. One of the hardest tracks to make, and the most fun, and the most satisfying, and the most I'm proud of, was Flames of the Past, hands down. He wanted rock, metal, so I provided tempo drops, dual tone guitars, heavy drums, harmonics. But it came out more like a heroic entrance, with a fall and a resolution at the end. It took 30 to 40 hours, including one 10-hour session just to get the MIDI right, all tapped in by my hand. As you can see, it's a keyboard I use. Sometimes I'll use a synthesizer, a drum pad. I just wish I could use the real instruments that I had and played it as well as I feel like it came out in the arrangement on FL Studio. On musical direction and inspiration, what was that? What was the genre, instruments, or moods that inspired the OST? Well, I worked from the game's description and lore from Troy. Then I just sat with it in a dark room and let ideas come. Old favorites from video games like Sonic, including Sonic Adventure 2, and 06 for the Kingdom Valley theme being a high point as the best level in the game, obviously. Final Fantasy, Spyro. Even at some points was I inspired by my own hip-hop and drum and bass background. So I wasn't copying songs bar for bar, but I was using references, soaking in videos that described microtonal shifts or some sort of minor chord that made the whole song change with playful syncopation, which is basically doing a rhythm shift to a few steps to the side to make it a little more balanced. So it's not like dun dun dun. It's like dun 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 dun. Overall vibe was dark fantasy, heroic, creepy at times for dungeons with hope mixed into it. How did you match the music to the environment it was set in? Matching music to the environment, I played through the beta build and read Troy's lore to get a feel for each area and the dungeons that are gray and rhythmic always have enemies popping up every 10 paces or so. So I built a looping bassy drum rhythm around that pattern of pace, and a lot of it came from reading the environment descriptions and building the formula in my FL Studio, my digital audio workstation, and going from there. And just coming up with key rhythms and key like melodies was fun. And the village theme was one of the ones that came up the best for my mind is when I matched it to the environment, because it gave a sense of a homey vibe where you can return to. What track was you most proud of? Well, Flames of the Past. Honestly, there's two of them. The battle theme and Flames of the Past. So the battle theme, it was the first song I made. Basically, when me and Troy met, it was like an audition to prove I could do the job. And we both agreed it blew the expectations out of the water. And he said, "You're hired, and let's get this done." And that's exactly what sealed the deal and what made me keep making the soundtrack. And that's how we started. So I'm going to pass the mic to my buddy Shane. He's going to tell you about his art direction.
Hi, this is Shane Borky, aka Edgelord from Centurion Dragon Studios, and I'm here to answer some questions about the game and the making of it in a way. So the visual identity I was aiming for some of the or I guess all the characters. But anyways, I would say, some of it deals with my boss and the coder, Troy, what he was asking for, and then I also put like my twist on it, and and took some references, of course, and try to be unique. And then the art style I went for, I would say, is kind of anime, Shonen Jump, because I like Dragon Ball Z and Naruto, stuff like that, and I was put into like that perspective. And so that also is like the influence about it, it's like Dragon Ball Z, Naruto, like I said, Shonen Jump style, anime manga style. And I designed the monsters, and I would say it was pretty fun. It was pretty cool, and I did it like traditional style, but then I also colored it in, and edit a little bit on like online, on the graphic arts app. Yeah, and then that's pretty much most of like the process so far that I'm dealing with and trying my best with. And sorry. The hardest character probably I would say I had to design though was probably the dragon. That was a little difficult, but it was still cool fun, and I hope y'all enjoy him when y'all see him, or her, whatever, the dragon. Anyways, I don't think we have a name for it, but it's okay. Shh, it's a secret. Just and I'm trying to think of any other ones, but that was difficult. Let's see. Probably the swamp witch lady, and I'm sorry I forgot like what she's called, but she was a little difficult, but she was fun though too. So yeah, the water. That's right. She's like the water hag. But anyways, I would say the reason why she was difficult though is because of like, I drew some of the environment around her, of course, to make it make sense. and the swamp and like trees was, like I said, a little difficult, but it was still fun. her clothing though, that was probably the most difficult because it was like a lot of like folds and like creases, but it's okay, you know. It got done, and I hope y'all enjoy her when you see her, and hopefully the dragon. And so I'm trying to think of what I've learned from all that, because honestly, I don't know if I learned anything besides like trying to like paint it on the graphic arts app, because I haven't done that honestly in a while. But it was cool. It was fun. I enjoyed it. My favorite piece of art though, I would say I did though in the game, was probably the Spellblade character. That one's pretty cool. And the Bounty Hunter. Both of them are like really cool. So I really hope you enjoy them when you check out our game. Yeah, and I gave like hopefully all my characters a very good personal touch and uniqueness. So, but yeah, so I would hope to hear some feedback and comments on the game, and hope y'all enjoy. Have a good one.
Alright, now that we're done with Jared and Shane's sections, they actually sent me a few questions they thought would be interesting for me to answer in this video. So let's go through them. Question 1. How would you rank the coding of myths and monsters on a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being impossible? Honestly, myths and monsters was surprisingly simple to code most of the time. Nova Rebellion was actually way harder to code than this game, and I made that in GDevelop. With myths and monsters, most of the systems that I needed for the game were already built into the engine, RPG Maker MV. I only had to write custom code for a few things, like the compass system, the fast travel, and even those were pretty straightforward for me. And at the end of the day, Myths and Monsters is a turn-based RPG. It doesn't need complex hitboxes, physics engines, or even really complex collision systems. If I had to describe the code briefly, it would basically be a souped-up calculator with graphics. So on that scale, I would give it maybe a 3 out of 10. Not trivial, but definitely not impossible. Question 2. What in real life inspired you to make Myths and Monsters? This one's tough because Myths and Monsters didn't come from a single moment. It came from a lot of things in my life. The earliest spark was my childhood best friend, Bebe, who got me into fantasy in the first place. I mean, before that, I was into Legend of Zelda, but she got me into stuff like Lord of the Rings. And high fantasy, if you know what I mean. But over time, I grew a love for dark fantasy, like Berserk, and morally complex stories. And some of that actually came to fruition because of the movie Batman vs. Superman. No, I am not kidding. This was the movie that made me think, oh, morally complex stories can be cool. Look, I was like 10 or 11 years old when I first saw this movie, okay? And Myths and Monsters became the place where I could explore all these ideas and test out all these complex stories and explore this stuff in a safe, fantastical environment. And this first game, by the way, is basically a test run for the world. It introduces the setting, the tone, and the psychological themes I want to explore in future entries. And yes, there will be more Myths and Monsters games. Believe that! The next question was, did Myths and Monsters come out as expected? Honestly, kind of. The game has been in development for over 2 years, and it went through a lot of changes before becoming what it is now. the final product is pretty close to what I envisioned. A lot of the systems and ideas made it in. Some exactly as planned, like the shields and the tactical point system. Some systems came in much simpler forms, and they could definitely use refinement. But for the first entry in a new RPG series, I think it's a pretty strong start. And I also wanted to talk about my contribution to the soundtrack, as I actually composed 6 of the tracks for the game. And the one I am most proud of is Twisted Monarch, the 8-minute long, dark orchestral theme that is one of the main battle themes for the primary antagonist, Draven. And I took heavy inspiration from Dancing Mad from Final Fantasy VI. Even though I haven't beaten the game yet, I've listened to the soundtrack enough to know how iconic that final boss theme is. As for the dungeon themes I pulled inspiration from the dungeon themes in The Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time, one of my favorite video games of all time. And weirdly enough, Tidal Tempest US from Sonic CD. Yes, that is where the song Tidal comes from on the soundtrack. You see, I played Sonic CD for my YouTube channel a while back, and I also absolutely loved the game. And one day while I was playing it, I was listening to the US version of Tidal Tempest present, and I was like, damn, this is pretty good. So I took some inspiration from that, and that's how we got Tidal, which is the theme of the second story dungeon in the game. So yeah, we just thought it would be cool to share some insights on how Myths and Monsters was created. If you have any questions at all about the game in any capacity, leave a comment down below and we'll get back to you as soon as we can. You can ask any of the studio members whatever you want to know about the game. The development, the story, the music, just go for it. And of course, make sure to pick up Myths and Monsters on Steam or itch.io. There's a 20% off launch discount on Steam, so I highly recommend taking advantage of that while it's available. All the links to the game will be in the description, including a link to our Discord server if you want to join the community and hang out with us. Thanks for watching, and welcome to the world of Myths and Monsters. This is Troy Schultz, the Anti-Gamer Slayer, signing